A little over a century ago, a car was a rare and precious thing. Handmade, unreliable, and so expensive that only the wealthy could dream of owning one. Then one man built a car so cheap and so tough that within a few years, half of all the automobiles on the entire planet were his. And he did it with a single idea that would reshape not just travel, but the modern world itself. This is the story of the Ford Model T and of the moving assembly line that built it. It is the story of how a stubborn farm boy put the whole world on wheels, and almost by accident, invented the modern factory that billions of us still live and work inside to this very day. It is a story of genius, of progress, and of a darker side we rarely talk about. At the dawn of the 20th century, the automobile was little more than a toy for the rich. Each one was built slowly by hand by skilled craftsmen. They were temperamental, forever breaking down, and cost more than most ordinary people could ever hope to earn. The horse still ruled the road. The car was a curiosity, a plaything, and almost no one imagined it could ever be anything more. But one man saw it differently. Henry Ford, a self-taught engineer from a Michigan farm, had an obsession. He did not want to build cars for the rich. He wanted to build a car for the great multitude. A car simple enough for anyone to drive and fix, tough enough for the terrible dirt roads of the countryside, and cheap enough that an ordinary working family could actually afford to own one. In 1908, he unveiled his answer. The Model T. It was not fast and it was not beautiful, but it was rugged, dependable, and endlessly practical. It could rattle over rutted farm tracks that would destroy a finer machine. People fell in love with it and gave it an affectionate nickname, the Tin Lizzie. The demand was enormous, and that created a whole new problem. Because Ford simply could not build them fast enough. Like every car maker of the day, his workers assembled each vehicle one at a time, a team of men swarming around a single chassis, fitting part after part by hand. It took many hours to complete just one car. As long as it was built this way, the Model T could never truly be cheap, and Ford's grand dream would remain out of reach. And then came the idea that changed everything. What if Ford wondered the worker did not move to the car? What if the car moved to the worker? Inspired in part by the great meatpacking plants where carcasses moved past workers on overhead rails, he had a revolutionary thought. Break the whole job into tiny, simple steps, and bring the work past each man on a moving line. In 1913, he put it into practice and the results were staggering. The unfinished car now crept along a moving belt. Each worker stood in one spot and did just one small task over and over. Fit this bolt, attach this wheel, add this part. No one had to fetch tools or walk anywhere or know how to build a whole car. The line brought everything to them in a perfect, ceaseless flow. The effect was almost magical. The time it took to build a single Model T collapsed from over 12 hours to just about 90 minutes. Cars poured out of the factory faster than anyone had ever seen. And because each one cost so much less to make, Ford could slash the price again and again. The car for the common man was finally, truly becoming a reality. But the relentless, repetitive work was so dull and exhausting that workers quit in droves. So Ford made another shocking move. He more than doubled their pay to an unheard of $5 a day. It stunned the business world, but it was brilliant. It kept his workers on the line, and it did something more. It meant the very men building the cars could now afford to buy one themselves. Yet there was a hidden price to all this progress. The assembly line, for all its power, could be soul-crushing. A worker might spend his entire day, every day, tightening the very same bolt, a cog in an enormous machine, never seeing the finished product of his labor. Critics warned that Ford had made the car affordable by turning the working man himself into just another interchangeable part. Still, the world could not get enough. Over the following years, Ford built an astonishing 15 million Model Ts. At one point, more than half of all the cars on Earth were Model Ts. The roads filled with them. They transformed farms, towns, and cities. For millions of ordinary families, the Model T meant freedom, distance, and a whole new way of life that their parents could never have imagined. But that low price came from ruthless standardization. Every Model T was deliberately nearly identical to the next. Ford himself is famous for a blunt remark about it. A customer, he said, can have a car painted any color that he wants so long as it is black. It was the trade-off at the very heart of mass production. To make something for everyone, you first had to make it the same for everyone. And the idea did not stop at cars. Ford's moving assembly line escaped the automobile factory and swept across the entire world of industry. Soon, everything was being mass-produced this way. Appliances, radios, furniture, food. The line made goods cheaper and more plentiful than ever before in human history, and helped give birth to the modern consumer society we all still live in today. Look around you and you are looking at the world Henry Ford helped to build. The highways and the suburbs, the traffic and the commute, the endless shelves of cheap, identical goods. So much of modern life flows directly from that one moving line in a Detroit factory. Few individuals in all of history have reshaped the daily lives of ordinary people quite so profoundly or so permanently. But the man himself was deeply flawed, and part of his legacy is genuinely dark. For years, Henry Ford used his enormous fame and fortune to spread vicious anti-Semitism, publishing hateful propaganda that poisoned countless minds. It is a shameful stain that no amount of engineering genius can wash away. The same man who freed millions to travel also spread ideas that did real and lasting harm. And his other invention, the assembly line, is still with us in ways we do not always notice. In the vast warehouses that ship our online orders, in the repetitive, measured tasks of so much modern work, we still live in a very real sense inside the system Henry Ford built. The question of how to make work efficient without making it inhuman is one he raised and one we still have not answered. Nowhere was the change more profound than on the farm. For a farming family, the Model T was far more than a way to get to town. Jack up one of its rear wheels and the spinning engine could be belted to a saw, a water pump, or a thrashing machine. It hauled crops, carried families to church and school, and shattered the deep isolation of country life. For rural America, the Tin Lizzie was nothing short of a revolution on four wheels. And the price just kept on falling. As the assembly line grew ever more efficient, Ford relentlessly passed the savings on to his customers. A Model T that had once cost around $850 eventually dropped to under $300. It was a virtuous circle the world had never seen. The more he sold, the cheaper he could make them, and the cheaper they got, the more he sold. Ford was quite literally building a market as he went. But in the end, Ford's greatest strength became his fatal weakness. He loved the Model T so deeply that he refused to change it. For nearly 20 years, it stayed almost the same. Meanwhile, rival car makers began offering color, comfort, and style, everything Ford had ignored. Slowly, the public drifted away. By 1927, the once unbeatable Model T was hopelessly obsolete, and Ford was finally forced to shut his great factory down for months to build something new. Even genius, it turns out, can become a prison. So the next time you sit in traffic or buy something cheap and mass-produced without a second thought, remember the Tin Lizzie and the moving line that built it. Henry Ford put the world on wheels, and in doing so, he rebuilt the world itself for better and for worse. So let me leave you with his own great question. Did the assembly line set the common man free, or did it quietly chain us all to the machine?